Hello, year sevens. This is Miss Bishop here. I will be taking over your lessons. So what we are starting is looking at ecosystems, and then we will be looking at coral reefs, how they are formed and what they're made up of. So first things first, I need you to get yourself your writing tools, so whether it be your paper, your book, your laptop, your tablet, and a pen and a pencil if you need one. And can you please, for me, for a couple of minutes, have a look at these two photographs, and what do you think they're showing us? What do you think this diagram here and this diagram here, what do you think they are showing us? Can you write down a brief description of what you see? It's almost like catchphrase. Say what you see. What do you see happening in these pictures? Just pause the film, pause this video, have a go at working out what you think they are, and then we will go through the answers in a second. Okay, so these are showing us ecosystems. Now, these are small ecosystems, okay? Ecosystems can be large or they can be small. And they are made up of the living and the non-living. Okay, so you can see all the living are the plants, the animals, the fish, the grasses, anything that is alive, an animal, plant, flora or fauna, that will be your living or your biotic factors. And your non-living are things like your rocks, your sunlight, your air. They're all non-living because it's a rock. It's not alive. Okay, so it's that mixture of biotic and abiotic, or living and non-living factors. So all of them work together in harmony. And that is how we have ecosystems. Like I said, they are small, like a pond, or if you've got like a tree stump in your garden, and you see like worms and mushrooms and spiders and bugs and things and rotten leaves, that itself is an ecosystem, or it can be massive like a desert or a rainforest. Okay, so what we're learning today is what an ecosystem is and the different parts of an ecosystem. We're going to see how they all work together, and by looking at what they consist of. So what I want you to do is to match up these keywords. So the ones with the question marks are the keyword, and then the ones that are kind of pinkish are the answers. So I'm going to run through these, run through all of them just to make sure you know all the words, and then pause the screen and match them up for me. So we've got what is a biome, what is an ecosystem, what is a producer, what is a consumer, and what is a decomposer. And then we've got something that makes its own food, a biological community of interacting organisms. So that is living things that work together, kind of like when you guys work in a group, you're interacting organisms, and their physical environment. A large natural area known for certain kinds of plants, animals, and its climate. Something that breaks down things, could be bacteria or fungi, and something that eats something else. So pause the screen, have a go at matching those up, and I will go through the answers with you in a second. Okay, so what is a biome? A biome is a large natural area known for certain kinds of plants and animals and its climate. So a biome, so this one here matches up with this one here. What is an ecosystem? Well, an ecosystem is a biological community of interacting organisms and their physical environment. This one here. What is a producer? Well, it's something that makes its own food. If you make your own food, you produce your own food, you are a producer. What is... oh, that's me. What is a... excuse me. What is a consumer? A consumer is something that eats something else. If you consume something, you eat something. Doesn't necessarily need to be a meat eater. It can be a plant eater as well. And what is a decomposer? Well, it's something that decomposes something. So when an animal or a plant dies, it breaks down. It rots. That's how you get that kind of zombie look about it, you know, that kind of rotting flesh. And that is down to bacteria, fungi breaking the body down. And what it is doing is returning it back to the earth. So, for example, say a fox died, the bacteria and the fungi would start to break it down, and all of the muscle, the skin, the fur, the bones, all of that would break down, and that would then be returned to the soil, and all those nutrients inside of that body would fertilize the soil, and then something would grow from it. Okay? Give yourself a mark out of 5. So, what sizes are ecosystems? Now, like I've said, they can be big or they can be small. Okay, so can you just write down that ecosystems can be a rotten tree stump, as I've said, or a pond. So they could be a small ecosystem. I know some ponds are quite big, but in the grand scheme of things, it's quite small. Or they can be as big as a desert or a rainforest and stretch for hundreds, even thousands of miles. So they could be as big as your back garden, or they could be as big as the Sahara Desert or the Amazon rainforest. So pause the screen, pop it down for me. So here we go, we've got some pictures here. So it can either be a small pond, or it could be as big as a rainforest. Now, we're going to have a look at food chains versus food webs. Now, a food chain, okay, is the way that animals eat their food. So you always start off with, where's my mouse gone? You always start with a producer at the bottom. I will look at a food chain first, so don't look at the web one. I'll explain that later. A food chain, okay, always shows a producer at the start. Okay, so you will always have a plant, whether it be some grass, a tree, a leaf, some corn, some wheat, whatever photosynthesizes and makes its own food, you will start off with. You will then move up the chain to the kind of secondary consumers, the top of the food chain. There's that saying, top of the food chain, that's what a food chain is. You start off with your plant, that gets eaten by a cricket. A mouse might then eat that cricket, and then the owl will eat the mouse. So you start off with the plant, which gets eaten by the cricket, which will then be eaten by the mouse, which will then be eaten by the bird. Okay, so in this food chain, the owl is at the top of the food chain. Okay, and the arrows show where the energy is passed from. So the plant's energy goes into the cricket, because the cricket's eating the plant, so it's getting all of its energy. You get energy from eating food. If you was to say have a can of Red Bull, you're getting energy from that can of Red Bull because it's got caffeine in it. If you're eating an apple, you're getting the energy from that apple. The energy when the mouse eats the cricket is going to the mouse. And likewise, the owl is getting the energy from the mouse. Okay, so it's very simple. This could be a plant. It could then be, I don't know, it could then be a, oh, I've lost my mouse. It could be a plant. It could then be a ladybird. It could then be a spider. It could then be, what might eat a spider? A dog. And then it might be, I don't know, if you lived in North America, it might be a grizzly bear at the top of the food chain. Or you could do humans. You could do grass, and then you could have a bug. You could then have maybe a chicken. You could then maybe have a human, because humans eat chickens. Okay? A food web is every possible food connection. So whereas a food chain only shows one connection. Okay, it shows a plant, primary consumer, secondary consumer, and then your tertiary consumer. Okay. Here, this grass could be eaten by the cricket, or the deer, or the rabbit. Okay, now let's follow this rabbit. So the rabbit could then be eaten by the fox or the owl. Okay, the cricket could be eaten by the mouse or the robin. Okay, the deer could eat the tree. This, whatever that is, chipmunk could eat the tree, but then that could be eaten by the owl. So this shows multiple food journeys, if you will. So you've got the producers here, the producer there, and then everything that eats off of it and where it goes to. So this one is more complicated. It shows multiple food paths, whereas this one only shows this one. You can see this one here, duh, 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 duh. But also it could be plant, cricket, mouse, hawk, or mouse, fox. Okay, so you've got one here, which is very simple, but then this one is lots of different ones. So all you do is follow the arrow and it will show you the path. Remember, the arrow pointing is where the energy is going to. So the plant's energy here is going to the rabbit. It's going to the deer. Okay. What we're going to do on the next slide is you are going to have a go at creating your own. So if you need to, listen to the instructions. Okay, listen to the instructions. And then you can always come back to this slide to give you some ideas. Okay. So before we do that, can you please just make a note that energy transfer, this box down here, energy transfer is when the plant or animal is eaten and the energy that's contained in it is passed on to the animal that has consumed it, like how your lunch gives you energy. Okay, like how your lunch gives you energy. So an energy transfer is the movement of the energy from one place to another. So say that there is an apple tree in my garden and I pick off an apple and I eat it. That energy transfer, the arrow, if I was drawing it, would go from the tree to myself because I am eating the apple and getting the energy from it. Okay? So what I want you to do is I want you to create your own food web. If you want to, just make a chain if you think that would be easier. You can pick any order that you want, but what you need to do is it needs to be logical and it needs to make sense. So there is no point saying that a snake is going to get bitten or eaten by a great white shark, because realistically the chances of that happening are slim to none. Okay, so you start at the top. You want your tertiary consumer. So this might be a hawk, it might be a bear, this might be a lion, it might be a tiger, it might be a human. Okay, so this will be your top one. Let me do that there. In the middle, you're going to have your middling ones. So you might have, say, a fox, or you might have a cat, or you might have a badger, or you might have a small rodent like a rat or a mouse or a vole or something like that. And then at the bottom, so these ones here, if I draw, are going to be your middle consumers. So these are going to be your smaller animals, rodents, things like that. And down the bottom here, you are always going to have your producer. So that is going to be your plant, your tree, your bush, whatever you want as your producer. Okay, so create your own. It doesn't have to be, you could do one for a jungle, you could do one for the Arctic, you could do one for the rainforest, you could do one for a farm, you could do one for your back garden. You could do one for yourself. What's in your fridge? Okay, so you've got some ham in your fridge, right? So that's pig. So work backwards. So it's me, the pig. What has the pig eaten? The pig might have eaten, well, pigs eat anything. So let's say that the pig's eaten some beetles that's been mixed in with its feed. And then what's that beetle eaten? Oh, it might have eaten some grass. Okay, so you'll have grass, beetle, pig, human. Okay, so spend 10 minutes creating your own. Create a food web, do multiple links. Okay, make it really elaborate. I'd love to see some great, amazing pictures that are spread out all over the page. And then what we're going to do is, when you are done with that, go on to the next slide and we will finish off with a quiz. Okay, so these 5 questions here. True or false, a producer gets its energy from the sun. True or false, a lion is an example of a decomposer. True or false, the highest level in a food chain or web has the least amount of energy. So the lion, for example, or the human in a food chain has the smallest amount of energy. True or false, a decomposer recycles nutrients back into the soil. Or true or false, tropical rainforests are an example of a biome. Okay, so pause the screen here, answer them, and I'm going to put up the answers in a minute. So pause the screen now. So these are the answers. So 1, true. Yes, a producer does get its energy from the sun. 2, no, a lion is not a decomposer. It is a consumer. 3, the highest level in a food chain has the least amount of energy. True. That should be false. It has the most amount of energy. I think I mistyped that one. Oh, false. 4, a decomposer recycles nutrients back into the soil. That is true. Tropical rainforests are an example of a biome. That is also true. Okay, so that is your first lesson with me over and done with. I hope you've enjoyed it. We've got another lesson on biomes coming up. ecosystems, looking at the larger ones, and then we're going to move on to coral reefs, which I absolutely love. So what I will do is just write my email address if you need it, and Bishop at Haslar. I think we've changed to now haslar.org.uk. I think it's St Leonard's Academy Trust for the ending for the email, but I'm not sure if it's changed over yet. There we go. So if you need me, email me with any work and I will gladly mark it for you. But I will see you next week. Have fun and enjoy whatever you've been doing over the past few weeks. See you later.